we're going to be returning education very simply back to the states.
Cuts to the Department of Education, another executive order from President Trump.
We were just trying to get a degree, get a better job.
Emotions run high and demands for transparency grow after a discovery at NC State's Poe Hall raises health concerns.
These results should have been reliable.
A complaint filed against the UNC Board of Elections over the Residence Hall Association election.
From the UNC Hussman School of Journalism and Media, connecting Carolina's campus and community, this is Carolina Week.
Good morning and welcome to Carolina Week. I'm Madeline Amati.
And I'm Ben Mihaljevic.
Recent developments on the text leaks of airstrike plans from the Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth.
Major new developments on the text leak on the attacks on Yemen. The Atlantic has released nearly all the texts from the group chat, including the details of the timings of the strike. On Monday, Jeffrey Goldberg, the editor-in-chief for The Atlantic, revealed that U.S. Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth added him to a group chat with top U.S. officials regarding plans for U.S. strikes in Yemen. At the time, The Atlantic held back the attack plan details. In response, the administration claimed that no sensitive plans for the attack were included in the texts. But today's release showed details of the timings and the specific targets. Congressional hearings have begun to investigate why strikes were being discussed on personal phones and taking place right now. Members of the group chat included Goldberg, Hegseth, Vice President J.D. Vance, and National Security Advisor Michael Waltz. National Security Advisor Mike Waltz says he takes full responsibility for the group chat. However, Hegseth claims Goldberg blew the story out of proportion, while Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer is concerned about Hegseth continuing as Secretary of Defense.
Talking about a deceitful and highly discredited so-called journalist who's made a profession of peddling hoaxes time and time again.
Secretary Hegseth's refusal to accept responsibility yesterday was eerily similar to the way he conducted himself during the confirmation process.
Despite Hegseth's claims, the White House said it authenticated what Goldberg reported. Teacher unions and advocates are suing the Trump administration after President Trump signed an executive order attempting to dismantle the Department of Education. The executive order, signed last Thursday, is part of a larger plan to downsize the federal government. Trump has recently criticized the agency, established in 1977, raising concerns about its focus and priority. Florida Democratic Representative Lois Frankel says she fears the long-term impacts if the department does completely shut down.
This is can be a very devastating blow to public schools all over the country because it strips from our schools vital resources.
I think we're looking at putting things in different departments where they can operate very efficiently as we look on how we can shut down the Department of Education.
More than a year after the closure of NC State's Poe Hall, workers are just now able to get their belongings. Our Samantha Hoffman is there right now. Samantha, I understand that you have updates for us. Can you talk to us about where you are?
Yes, Maddie. As you can see, Poe Hall is still locked and closed to the general public, but the university has contacted workers saying now they have cleaned their belongings, which they now can retrieve. I spoke with an alum from NC State about the past year since the building's closure, and she says she wants answers from the university. In Poe Hall about 20 years ago. She has fond memories, and yet those days can be difficult to talk about.
We were just trying to get a degree, get a better job, better health insurance, ironically enough.
It's hard for her to make sense of what is now at the center of multiple investigations, a potential cancer cluster in Poe Hall. The building was shut down after it tested positive for carcinogens known as PCBs, chemicals used in construction of the building. They have since been banned because of their adverse health effects.
It is exhausting.
Alfred was diagnosed with stage 2 breast cancer in 2022.
Truly. Mine was found in my lymph node, so I have to worry about metastatic breast cancer for the rest of my life.
Cancer cluster researcher Andy Olshan says linking cancer cases to the PCBs found in Poe Hall might be hard to prove, with many factors to consider.
It's hard to find an answer, convincing answer one way or another.
But attorneys now planning to sue say they have more than 300 clients who believe their cancer and illnesses are tied to the building. Lawyers say most of these clients are former faculty and students who spent 2 or more years in Poe Hall, as well as about 100 children of staff who were pregnant while working in the building. While the building remains closed here at NC State, the university is conducting its own investigation. It includes an evaluation by the CDC and environmental consultants, but some question its legitimacy.
While they're saying nothing to see here, there's no problems, they're also they permanently closed Poe Hall and have talked about spending hundreds of millions of dollars to remediate it.
Poe Hall isn't the only building in question. A report on the university's website shows D.H. Hill Junior Library was found to have high levels of PCBs in 2018. And consulting firm S&ME found Dabney Hall to have PCBs in 2023. Both buildings are still open.
I have my class in Dabney. I will say I try to avoid it as much as possible, honestly.
We reached out to NC State about their protocol for testing and treating buildings. They said they routinely test buildings for hazardous substances during renovation projects, and that the regulatory requirements regarding hazardous substance assessment, mitigation, and remediation guide our response. If we have reason to believe a building is unsafe or in need of repair, we will take action to protect the safety of our community. Frustration on campus has become clear. A student advocacy group even delivered a petition with more than 1,300 signatures to Holiday Hall, where Chancellor Randy Woodson works. The petition contains more than 30 pages of demands, including contacting former faculty and staff, compensating for health screenings, and testing all 70 campus buildings that were constructed before PCBs were banned. The university insists it has been transparent and is following proper protocol. But for people like Sandy, it's simply not enough.
I just want some answers, and I want answers not only for myself, but for the others.
Lawyer Brian Bryce says that he is still looking into this, and thank you, Samantha, for that information. So, bathroom bills. They are back on the docket in North Carolina. Our Catherine Dehart looked into this story, and it's been 9 years since North Carolina Republicans filed HB 2, the controversial bathroom bill that cost North Carolina more than $3 billion when it was first introduced, according to reports from the Associated Press. Republicans in the General Assembly are reintroducing a similar bill to restrict access to bathrooms by someone's gender at birth. Advocates like former Governor Pat McCrory say this represents a broader shift in national politics. However, critics say the bill imposes barriers to freedom for transgender people in North Carolina. New tariffs on Canadian and Mexican imports could lead to economic implications, according to experts. The volatility of President Trump's tariffs has raised concerns for investors and economists. With a 25% tariff now in place and the threat of a 200% tariff on European wine, economists warn of economic disruption. Canada, Mexico, and China have retaliated. Canada imposed a 25% tariff on $30 billion worth of U.S. imports. Economist Michael Walden says these trade policies could trigger complex ripple effects.
You hurt people not only in the country that now sees the tariffs, but you also hurt people in the other country because that first country will impose their own tariffs. And you get into what economists call a tariff war.
More than $500 million is heading to western North Carolina to support recovery efforts following Hurricane Helene. After a back-and-forth debate between the NC House and Senate, Governor Josh Stein signed the Helene Recovery Bill. It's his first bill that he's signed since taking office. The bipartisan law allocates $524 million to rebuild homes, farms, and privately owned roads damaged by the storm. Stein's proposed 2025 to 2027 budget could be the next step in securing additional funding for Helene's recovery. This proposal mentions tax credits for businesses and support for schools impacted by the storm.
North Carolina lawmakers are pushing a new bill to try to combat youth vaping by raising the legal age for purchase. Solly's Law was introduced during a press conference last week. The bipartisan bill would raise North Carolina's legal sales age for tobacco and vaping products from 18 to 21. The bill would also require retailers to have a permit for tobacco and nicotine sales. Businesses that sell to minors could face a Class 2 misdemeanor and fines of up to $1,000, and underage individuals caught vaping may be required to complete tobacco education programs. The bill is named in honor of Solomon Wynn. According to his family, he was a previously healthy 15-year-old football player who died after his lungs filled with fluid from vaping.
Vapes and other nicotine products should not be available to underage kids. We need enforcement.
North Carolina is one of 7 states that have yet to align with federal law by raising the minimum age to 21. This bill would change that.
New updates. The Trump administration says it will not disclose further information on the flights of Venezuelan migrants sent to El Salvador. The Judicial Department wrote in a filing this week that disclosing information would cause, quote, harms that would, quote, impede future counterterrorism operations. This filing denies the information to a federal judge who was wanting to understand why the administration did continue flights after the order was made. The Trump administration says the flight was carrying members of Venezuelan street gang Tren de Aragua, but the judge ruled that the migrants should have a fair trial before getting deported. Coming up on Carolina Week.
The immune system can sometimes overreact to things that are completely safe and benign.
Pollen is everywhere. Find out how you can get ahead of your allergies.
A Carolina student
The attention that this case has caused, I think that does need to be acknowledged.
A Carolina student has filed a lawsuit against the UNC Board of Elections. What this means for the outcome of a student election after the break.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. Ben, spring has sprung. I mean, looking outside, it is just beautiful, isn't it?
Yeah, Maddie, and I mean, it's about time. I came down here from Connecticut to try and avoid some of that cold weather, and I'm glad we finally have warm weather in Chapel Hill.
Absolutely. There's still snow in my home state of Vermont, but here it is bright and sunny. Today we have our meteorologist Megan Giller joining us to talk about the weather next week.
Thanks, Maddie. Yeah, we're going to continue to see some very spring-like lovely weather, but today it's a little bit colder thanks to that cold front that came through last night. So we're seeing the lower 60s as we head towards your noontime hour, but we're only going to peak around 64 today at 3 p.m., and then we'll move back into the lower 60s as we head towards 6 p.m. That colder weather is just because of that cold front that moved through, but we'll continue to see sunny, lovely spring-like weather thanks to the high pressure system that's sitting over our area today, Thursday, and into Friday. Once we move into Saturday, though, we'll start to see our next big rainmaker moving over the area, and that's going to bring rain for us on Sunday and into Monday as well, with another cold front behind it, which could bring some cooler temperatures to start out the week next week. Now, with all that dry air is going to bring some more fire warnings for us here in North Carolina. Most of the state is under a very high risk for fire spread, but this means that no burning is allowed right now in North Carolina. Up here in the Durham Chapel Hill area, we're seeing very high, but as we move over towards Wake County, we'll start to see more of a moderate risk for fire spreads. So even a tiny little spark can set a wildfire off, so don't try to burn anything at all today. As well as dry weather is going to continue to bring more allergies into the area. Dry weather is going to bring in all of that pollen. So we're going to see a big jump as we move in to later this week. But once that rain scoots into the area, it'll go back down. So you'll want to make sure that you're still taking your allergy medicine and closing the windows to your home so that way all of that pollen can't get inside. Moving throughout the rest of this week, we'll have that colder weather on Wednesday and Thursdays, but lovely sunny conditions as we head through this week. We'll jump up to 77 once a warm front moves through on Thursday into Friday. And then on Saturday, we could even see 80 degrees. It's going to be a lovely week to get outside. But as we move into Sunday and Monday, we're going to start to see some rain come in, probably wash out a little bit of those allergies as we head into next week.
Thank you for breaking down the different types of pollen for us, Megan. I didn't know all the science behind my allergies.
Well, yeah, it's good to know now because allergy season has officially begun in North Carolina and will last till mid-April. Our Isha Patanaik tells us what we can do to get ahead of the pollen.
You like to train?
Yeah. When spring approaches, children like Harrison get to go outside and play in the fresh air. However, as the temperatures rise, so does the pollen. WRAL meteorologist Amy Wilmoth says this time of year it's the tree pollen that gets everyone's allergies going.
So what we have this week is really warm temperatures. Those trees are really starting to flower and bloom, and that's why we're really starting to see those numbers climb.
The division chief of UNC Pediatric Allergy and Immunology, Dr. Edwin Kim, says our immune system tries to fight the tree pollen.
But occasionally what ends up happening is that the immune system can sometimes overreact to things that are completely safe and benign. And pollen is one of those.
Kim says anywhere from a third to 1/2 of the North Carolina population is affected by seasonal allergies. Some of them have home remedies for the symptoms.
The honey from the farmer's market and stirring it in some tea, like local honey.
Other people told us they find ways to cope.
And just like keep tissues on hand. If you can do like an allergy pill, keep them on hand too. I mean, just be prepared, but I still try to get out and enjoy it.
Kim recommends getting ahead of the symptoms with medications such as nasal sprays and antihistamines.
Well, occasionally the antihistamines and the nose sprays are just not enough, and that's where allergy shots come into play. And this is a very, very effective treatment that also has the potential to actually try to get rid of the allergies long term.
You just have to deal with it the best you can and let it pass.
Isha, thank you. Budget cuts will significantly change UNC's human resources and equal opportunity and compliance offices, according to an email from the Chancellor's office. One of the biggest changes, the departure of the office's Vice Chancellor, Becky Mangini, who the university credits for vastly improving how the office dealt with complaints of harassment and discrimination. Human Resources will also become part of the Division of Finance and Operations. Our team reached out to the university to learn more about what this means. They said this would not affect how students directly interact with the office and no other positions would change.
A Carolina student says the UNC Board of Elections mismanaged the Residence Hall Association election. Addison Truzzi, once a candidate, filed a complaint against the UNC Board of Elections in the Student Supreme Court. Let me break this down for you. The complaint claims the board failed to effectively communicate with her campaign and initially miscounted votes, leaving her, quote, humiliated. Truzzi says she was initially declared the winner of the election in an announcement that included the word certified. Nearly a week later, the board announced that Audra Farrar was the certified president-elect. The chair of the UNC Board of Elections says the February 14 results included a typo.
It was the certified results of the spring 2024 general election that I was using as a template. I missed that one instance of the word certified. But if you were to look at the whole of that document, the right heading says preliminary. The document is titled preliminary.
To be on the ballot and to run for this position was a huge deal, and the pure negligence and lack of regard for feelings when announcing the new president-elect and just going about this election process has been just truly disheartening.
Truzzi is asking for a re-election or to be named the winner. North says there isn't enough time to effectively conduct another election, and the student body has, quote, moved on from these issues. UNC's police department says it is investigating multiple thefts of electric scooters and bikes since the start of the semester. E-bikes and e-scooters have been reported stolen from locations across campus since January, including near residence halls and academic buildings. UNC Police says it has no suspects at this time. The department is urging students to take proactive steps to protect their e-bikes and e-scooters. These steps include investing in a U-lock, registering your e-bike or e-scooter with UNC's registration program, and choosing well-lit areas to park your electric bike or scooter. UNC Police says it will continue to work to address these thefts and ensure student safety. And speaking of stealing, Spencer, the men's basketball portal is open and UNC's got some roster spots to fill.
That's exactly right, Ben. There are definitely some big changes coming for UNC men's basketball next season. But on the other hand, the women are still dancing, so we'll have all that and more after the break.
Sports Extra's Spencer Haskell joins us now for more on what's already been a jam-packed week of Carolina athletics. Spencer?
Thanks, Ben. Now, it's been a whirlwind of a week since the men's basketball transfer portal opened yesterday, as after a season filled with some high highs and some very low lows, the Tar Heel basketball team has already lost 2 players to the transfer portal so far after it opened on Monday. Starting point guard Elliot Cadeau and forward Jalen Washington announced their entrances to the transfer portal just one day after it opened. Now, both players showed flashes of what they could have been during the regular season, but they each struggled with inconsistency. With Cadeau and Washington transferring out and R.J. Davis and Jalen Withers graduating, Hubert Davis and the Tar Heels will now have to replace 2 front court and 2 backcourt positions this offseason. And while the men are already looking towards next season, the Carolina women's basketball team took to their second dance of the NCAA tournament when they took on West Virginia on Monday in Carmichael. The Heels jumped out to a 6-0 lead with a jumper by Lexi Donarski, followed by a nasty 3 from Renaya Kelly off a Mountaineer turnover. West Virginia would respond, however, with an 8-0 run of their own thanks to rebounds and second chances capped by a Jordan Harrison 3 to claim their first 3 of the night. The Heels struggled to break West Virginia's press defense, but a quick team recovery and strong passing would put the ball in the hands of Laney Grant to drill a clutch three to put the Heels ahead by 4. The game was tight through the first 3 quarters, but this India Navarre layup at the buzzer put the Heels up 7 going into the 4th. And in the 4th, some strong defense by the Heels held West Virginia to just 9 points, sealing a 58-47 Tar Heel victory, securing their spot in the Sweet 16 this weekend in Birmingham.
If you think about what Carmichael looked like tonight and how many people have wrapped their arms around this team and willed us to wherever we need to be. You know, Carmichael is a great place to host. Our kids earned it, and they showed up for us.
Now from the hardwood to the diamond, the UNC baseball team took the short trip down 85 to Charlotte to take on the fake Carolina on Truist Field on Tuesday night. South Carolina started off swinging for the fences and smashed back-to-back home runs to open the game, but the Heels quickly responded with a home run of their own by Tyson Bass in the top of the 2nd. After 2 more South Carolina runs, the Heels trade 3-1 after 2, but Olin Johnson stepped onto the mound and with some help from the defense, shut out the Gamecocks for the next 3 innings. The UNC offense would be able to capitalize with a Luke Stevenson homer and Bass driving the ball to center field, scoring 2 runs, taking the lead. This 4-hour game went deep into both bullpens, but in the end, Carolina's in Chapel Hill, USC's in California. Heels take down South Carolina 13-8. That's all for sports. Be sure to tune into Sports Extra on Friday at 11:30 for another preview of another exciting weekend in Carolina athletics.
Welcome back to Carolina Week. A reminder, it's National Women's Month. One of my favorite women, my mom, her birthday is this Friday. So just a little shout out there.
That's very nice.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us this week. And this week, we're actually launching our Good News segment where we'll highlight positive stories within our community. Our first story celebrates what I was just talking about, Women's History Month. So let's take a look at the Carolina Women's Center and the work that they are doing on campus. We spoke to the director, Dr. Shauna Harris, who says the center's continued mission is to lead gender equity initiatives by ensuring there are no gender-based barriers to success.
There are budget cuts happening across many institutions. We have been supported to be able to do that work for faculty, staff, and students on campus. That's a win in itself.
This summer, the Women's Center will relaunch the Moxie Scholars Program, where students will get a better understanding of challenges facing women.
That's all. That'll do it for this week's episode of Carolina Weekend. We hope you have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.